places yesterday, Baruch Hashem, I had a simcha, my nephew, a bris for his son, so it's my great nephew's bris. And the baby is named after my father, and the baby's mother has the same name as my father's mother, so it's Yaakov ben Miriam. Special Baruch Hashem, that special opportunity, special moment. Anyway, I think we're up to Halacha Ches and the laws of Kashrus. Does anyone have any notes that say otherwise? If not, that's what we're going to do. We're in the laws of Kashrus, Aksharas Kalim, each Kuf Yud Ches, 118. Can I trouble when you first give me a cup of water? Thank you. Thank you. So, just to tune in, when it comes to the laws of kashering, the Torah is very specific and says certain materials are subject to the laws of kashering. I'm sorry, I was confusing with tefillah. We finished tefillah. Okay, I'll replay the tape. Hachsharas kelim means to kasher a vessel from whatever it's absorbed from. Now, as we said in our intro a few weeks before Pesach, that the laws of kashrus extend beyond food itself that we consume. It also pertains to the equipment, to the utensils that we use to prepare the food that we eat. So the utensils that we use in the kitchen to prepare food also have to have that element of sanctity, of kedusha, and of purity. So different types of material can or cannot be kosherized. The idea is that we have to be able to purge whatever's been absorbed in the walls of the vessel. And in general, we work with what's called the like-to-like principle. The way in which something gets absorbed, that's how it can get purged. Yes? So for example, and this principle, by the way, also applies when it comes into life, for example. In life also, it applies in a broad sense. So for example, if you have, you have a child who's very hyperactive. They can't sit still. So they're constantly making disturbances in class. Yeah? So the way to redeem that is to find that energy and use it for a positive purpose. I heard a story about a student. It's a cute story. It's a little chutzpahdik, but cute. So I'll share it. There was a teacher who was teaching 15-year-old boys, and he said that if you disturb the class, you're going to have to pay a $5 knas. It's like a penalty. This is like 10 years ago, so inflation adjusted, figure it's like $15. Not a lot of money. It's pretty decent sum of money for a child on a daily basis. So it's a fixed rate. It's a fixed cost. Anyway, so the kid happily paid the knas. He couldn't control himself. He used to talk and pay the knas. So they had arrangement. Here we're talking. He paid the knas to the teacher. One day, he comes to the teacher and he gives the teacher $100 check. Teacher says to him, what is this all about? Child says to the teacher, 20 days credit. I'm paying in advance. Anyway, certain personality. Page Kof Yud Ches. Halach Ches. So now, today we're going to look at clay zechuchis, a glass vessel. Earlier by clay medium, the Torah says it enumerates all kinds of metal vessels. It says gold, the silver, the copper, the iron, the lead, the first and the tin. All these 6 types of metals talks about kosherizing them, etc. Doesn't actually mention glass, but the Chachamim, the rabbis, rabbinic authorities infer that glass has similar properties to that of metal in the sense where you can take metal, you can melt it down and reshape it. The same as with glass, you can just crush the glass and basically refire it up, and then you have you can make glass again. This summer, I took 2 trips to the Corning Glass Museum. Once I went with my wife, and we went together because I had a kashrus company not far from there. I stayed over and I said, I want to go back there. So we went on a day and a half vacation. We toured the museum, and I took my children there also. And it's very fascinating to watch them shape the glass. The way they play with the heat, and that's really what it is. It's basically sand, and they blow it. So halacha ches gam din kli zechuches lenis bar batayro yeshav zechuches ene tzricha gola. There are those that say, with regards to the glass, there are actually three opinions about its absorption qualities. Some say it's smooth. Since it's smooth, the kosher doesn't actually absorb at all. That's the most lenient position that says it doesn't absorb at all. On the opposite end of the spectrum is those that say it does absorb. It's just like metal. And you kosherize it with hagala, with boiling water, like you would with metal. There are those that say that glass has the same halachic category as earthenware because it's coming from sand. And furthermore, you cannot kosherize. They say you can't kosherize glass. So you have three opinions. One opinion is on the far spectrum of the lenient side. It says glass does not absorb. Then you have an opinion on the far spectrum of the stringent side. It says you can never kosherize glass because it's like earthenware. Then you have the middle opinion that says it's like it has to be kosherized. According to the stringent opinion, there's no way to kosherize glass because there's the same din as cheres. So what do we actually do in practicality? Now we get into minhag where we actually follow minhag b'nei Ashkenaz lahach b'kshita achreina linyan shein lahach she'chuz l'Pesach. So we're machmer on Pesach not to kosherize glass from chametz to Pesach because you have this opinion that says that glass cannot be kosherized. Avlin and shari surim, but by shari surim means for year-round use, we do kosherize it. That's the accepted approach. Many Sfardim take a very lenient approach, and they say that glass does not have to be kosherized at all, even for Passover, because glass does not absorb, like the opinion says, doesn't absorb. So you find some Sfardim that have one set of dishes, both for meat and for dairy, because glass does not absorb. They have separate sets of silverware, because you have to have, because it's metal. So I heard from one of my students in Machal Mihados about 10 years ago, and she said that in France, the Rabbanim said that even though we have such a custom that we hold that glass is not absorbed, and we're allowed to have one set of dishes. If you have children in your home under Barabas Mitzvah, you cannot do this. Why? Because the child, they're not going to realize. They're going to say, what's going on over here? One set of dishes, two sets of silverware is going to create all kinds of confusion in their mind. Once they become over Barabas Mitzvah, they'll say, oh, glass is not absorbed, it's different. And metal is different. Okay, so that's you have to use common sense and how to approach the matter. By the way, it's not so easy to be a Sephardi. On Pesach, you can have one set of dishes. You don't have to kosherize your glass dishes, but comes Elul, you have to get up at the crack of dawn and say Selichot for 30 days. So the Ashkenazim only have to say it for 4 days. So you can't pick and choose. Sephardi they have their perks, but they also have their, their things. Yes.
Can I ask something related to the matzah?
To the matzah?
Yeah.
Can you ask after class? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Halacha tes. So according to those opinions that say that glass does not absorb, those that customize themselves to buy old glass dishes from non-Jews, and they just rinse them out because they don't absorb, it's nothing to worry about. So they toivel them, because you have to toivel it, and you don't need hagol, you don't have to kosherize it. They also use a glass cup for, let's say, a mug. For those of you that drink coffee, I don't drink coffee, that you know already. I have other types. I drink Pepsi on the road never when I'm a little sleepy. And they'll use the same keli after cleaning it. They use it for a fleshig meal because it doesn't absorb. So as long as you rinse it out, it's okay. I never drink coffee in my life.
In your life.
I never touched coffee. I don't have a type for it. I don't know. I drink tea.
But you never know if you didn't taste it.
That's true. You're right. No, I like the smell of coffee. I like the smell of a cup of coffee. It's like a certain perks you up, but I never drank it. I don't know. I'm just chocolate. I eat chocolate. In fact, there's certain ice cream that my wife buys. She has to hide it from me. She knows. I'm human. It's okay. It's good. My father, Lava Shalom, his Yurtzeh is next Thursday. By the way, I have to probably switch also next week and teach Friday. he used to like cherry chip ice cream. That was his thing, his weakness. Everyone has to have their fix. That's also my fix somehow. It must have passed down generationally, generational. Okay, halacha yud. Ulam yeshamrim shem konik lizuch minoch lizuch lachshim. Those that say you have to kasher it, which is the way we follow in Ashkenazim. Kin yeshamrim shlachatchil nochash leidashtamish lizuch es echel bas vechel chav. It's also not good and proper to use the same vessel, even though it's just glass, for meat and milk. But if it became also, you can't kasher it. As I said earlier, the Sfardim that hold this way, not all Sfardim do, by the way, those Sfardim that are lenient, they are allowed to use the same vessel that's glass for milk and meat separately, of course. If they clean them, and they rinse them between each use, respectively, obviously. By the way, there's another element of glass which I want to touch on. And that is as follows: like glass, some glass is very thin. For example, wine glasses, they're thin glass. And if you try to immerse those glasses in boiling water, they're going to shatter because they can't take the heat. If it's a thick glass, it'll be able to take the heat, no problem. So something that you're concerned that you might come to break through kashering, that itself is a reason you can't kasher it, because you're not going to do a good job. Wine glass, really, if it's for kosher wine, that you could just kosherize by letting it sit in cold water for 24 hours, do the cold koshering process. 3 seconds is 24 hours. But if you want to immerse it in boiling hot water, which would be a valid way of kosherizing it, you can't do it with a thin wine glass. It's going to shatter. And you won't do a good job.
Even if you want to try,
Not supposed to try in such a case. Malka Levana, you wanted forewarning? Probably next week I'm also going to have to switch my time slot from Thursday to Friday because it's my father's yard site.
All right, that's a good reason.
I don't always give warnings, but if you wanted it,
I really do.
okay, I respect that. It's okay.
Thank you.
Now,
What are we bringing about tonight?
good question. If I bring tonight, probably at the Shabbos table also.
Oh,
This week is the Shabbos before my father's yard site. It's the 11th yard site. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Anyway, a little bit more, so I don't feel so guilty. Halacha Yud Aleph. Oifen achshoros plays a chuk is the way you kash a glass. If you can kash it, hook it along. So how does it work? It says in the Tanya brings down from the Gemara that the way you're supposed to open up your students' minds and hearts is through some humor. Humor is very important. By the way, it's one of my father's lessons. Before I got married, my father said to me, remember, it's like humor is very, very important. Humor is very important. It's a way to connect people. You know about the ongoing joke my father had in the house? Yes, you know about it? It's when he would say something at the Shabbos table that maybe my mother had a different opinion about. He would pretend like my mother would kick his leg under the table. He would say, oh, that's my good leg. Oh, that's my good leg. So we all knew it was a joke. We didn't even bother looking under the table. But when my sister got married, she got married first in the family story. When really, they weren't sure. They really, that was part of the humor. You created an environment. Yeah. Humor is very important. My brother inherited that humor. My brother's in absolute panic. And a prankster. Anyway, a troublemaker. I'll look at this other rough. Okay, anyway. Okay, so if you use the glass, let's say for hot things, then you kasher it the way it was used. Let's say it was used for hot liquids. Let's say I have a glass mug that's thick, and I used it for milchiks. So now it came with hot liquid. To kosherize, it has to be immersed in hot liquid and boiling liquid, and that's not going to shatter because it's thick. Let's say glass is only used for cold. You don't boil wine in a glass. You drink it, you sip, and people sip, and they pontificate, and they start swishing the wine. They start talking about what it's. But you know, they try to sound sophisticated. Maybe it's sat in there for 24 hours. Then you can kasher through a process called miloi ve'iroi, filling and pouring, which means that you fill up the cup with water to the brim for 20 and leave it there for 24 hours. Don't touch it. Let it sit. and then you pour out that water and then refill it for another, to the brim, for another cycle of 24 hours, and then a third cycle of 24 hours. So it's a total of 72 hours of sitting time. Doesn't have to be consecutive, by the way. You can have a little time in between. Then the vessel becomes kosher. If it only absorbs through cold. Bless you.
Wait, but need to pressure like the hot water or no? The cold?
No, that's if the vessel was only used for cold. You can kosherize it with cold. But if it was used with hot, you have to kosherize with hot. The like-to-like principle, right? The way something gets absorbed, that's how it's going to get purged. I told you this also. It says in Shulchan Aruch, I think it's at the end of the Kitzur, by Hilchos Tshuva, it says that if a person has to fix up some misdeeds, right, Tshuva, they should invest their highest, their energy in a mitzvah with a lot of fervor, a lot of highest, because that redeems the energy that was used in the wrong place. It's the like principle. The way you absorb something, that's how you purge it. So if something got absorbed in a way that's not proper, you have to purge it with using the same energy. Same concept. We said that already. Okay. I'm now going to skip. You'll excuse me, but I explained this already, so I want to cover material. We're now going to skip to page Kuf Chaf. To Halacha Yud Beis.
Rabbi, there is something on Portugal. Or you said.
There's Hilchos Tshuva, of course there is. The Rambam has it. The Rebbe has it. I'm just saying in Shulchan Aruch, I saw in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, I saw once this halacha brought down that through investing chayis in a mitzvah with a lot of fervor, it's misakin. It fixes up misdeeds. Anyway, halacha Yud Beis. So until now we're speaking about kashering for year round, but we said we don't kasher for Pesach. I'll call on Rakli Nachshos, please look at Mishar Yisuma, the pardon, it's boy, she is Moedim, she Nachshos, please look at the Pesach Afil Beit. It's Omnam, Kasher, please look at Mitzuyim. If you have no other vessels around and you're stuck, you have no cups of Pesach, but a vessel that you did not use for hot, you can kosherize through pouring and filling this, the method I just said about three cycles of 24 hours of sitting up to the brim of water. Should I start with the stories, or should we learn a little bit more? You know, stories are also important. We learn a lot from stories. Stories are an expression of life. We'll start with the stories. We're going to start by Halacha Yud Gimel about Pyrex and porcelain. I think it talks about also. Then we're going to get into Frashas Chala, and then checking for bugs. It's fun. Okay, we'll finish. We have enough time. So, Dalit Iyar, this coming Thursday, Wednesday night, Thursday, is my father's 11th yard site. My father was Yaakov ben Miriam, and he was a scientist. My father was a scientist, a very, very prominent scientist. He had 53 patents. I think 57 patents. A few passed after he passed away also, because they were in the process. I think 57 patents, if I'm not mistaken. In the field of solar energy, he was a trailblazer and a leader in the field. He was very humble. My mother used to criticize him for being too humble for himself. And I found a letter from the Rebbe where the Rebbe criticized him also for being too humble. There are very few Chassidim that I know that merited to get such criticism from the Rebbe. My father was writing to the Rebbe. My father started the Begishim Chabad, the Shabbatons. He started this in 1962, 63, with another Chassid Rabbi who lived pretty well. So when my father's task was to write reports to the after how many people came, how well it was received, the Rebbe was very involved in it. It was a very precious project for the Rebbe. The Rebbe, they started at the behest of the Rebbe. So my father wrote to the Rebbe that this was the speaker, this was the topic he spoke about, this is how many students came or how many people came, etc. And this is how it was received. But he never mentioned about anything about himself in the reports. So the Rebbe said so I saw this when I was sitting shiva with my father 11 years ago. One of the Rebbe's secretaries came in and he brought me the letter. He says, this is an answer the Rebbe gave to your father on a duch, on a report he wrote. And the Rebbe wrote, Aduch chaser, the report is missing. You mentioned nothing about the organizer himself. And then the Rebbe says, Hareza Anova Shalei b'mekoymei. This is misplaced humility, and the Rebbe underlined it twice. Pretty powerful.
Wow.
I was blown away by that. I memorized it. 11 years ago.
By the way.
What?
No, I remind you, I don't know, to Google.
Duch, yeah. And anyway, to do a duch, to write to the Rebbe.
Right, so we need to make talk to the Rebbe.
You have to write a duch to the Rebbe, yeah.
Report.
Yeah. So anyway, that was that. And then my father came to the Rebbe at age 26. He was a student in Penn State University. And that's a story in of itself. My father comes from a Sephardic traditional home. His parents were not from quote unquote, but they were traditional. They kept certain, customs. My father was a deep soul, and he really was searching. So he tells me with a smile, he says, I had this bar mitzvah to serve at a temple. I was 13. He says I knew something was. It was just like the show. I knew this was. It's like missing all the Jews. Something's wrong here. Anyway, so at age 26, the hill it was arranged for Chabad to come to his campus, to his university, Penn State University, 1961. Tavshach HaBeis, it was November 1961, and they sent 6 shluchim from the Rebbe to the university for that job, 6 or 7. 2 of them were married at the time. They came without their wives. And the other 5 were Bachrim. And my father came, he was sporting a little T-beard, and he came with his bicycle, and he came and he listened. And he said that after that Shabbos, this is what he said to me. He says, I wasn't impressed with anything that they said. But he says, I heard them singing their nigunim, the songs, and I felt there's something very deep, powerful, and truthful over here. I wanted to learn more. And then they accompanied the shluchim back to the train station in Pennsylvania. He was singing a niggin that the Rebbe taught. That year, Simchas Torah, Yeshia Samecha. My father was blown away that you can have Jewish pride being expressed in public. I mean, it's earth-shattering for a college student. So he was very taken. And one of the people that came for the Shabbos was Rabbi Benjamin Klein, the Rebbe's secretary. He was married at the time. He came without his wife. And he arranged for these students to have yichidus with the Rebbe. So my father and 6 other students came to the Rebbe about the following week after that Shabbos. With 6 males, 6 men and 1 woman. And each one had a life story. You can imagine the young student. So they wrote long letters to the Rebbe. The woman wrote like a 10-page letter to the Rebbe. She had yichidus. And then the men, each one wrote their, anyway. So they had long yichidus in. So I don't remember where the Rebbe directed each one of them. I know that one of them the Rebbe directed to go to Yeshiva Torah Das. In those days, there were very few yeshivas. I don't remember what the Rebbe told the woman to do. When it came to my father, the Rebbe said the following words: Yankel Chanukah belongs in 770. The Rebbe picked him like Shema. So he came to 770, and then he was still in the middle of the semester in university. So the Rebbe said he should finish his semester in university and come and learn. He shouldn't disrupt his semester and come to learn 770 thereafter. So his semester finished right after Hanukkah. So he came to 770 in 1962 because it was already after January. Asar B'Tevis, the 10th of Tevis, the day of the fast day. It was right after Hanukkah. So the Rebbe said, his name is Hanukkah, he should come learn here after Hanukkah. And so the Rebbe connected his coming to 770 with Hanukkah. And all throughout his years, he was known as Hanukkah. Even though our last name in English is Hanoka, in Hebrew it's Hanukkah, Professor Hanukkah, that was his name. So he learned in 770, and he could barely read English. He read English very well. He was a college student. He could barely read anything in Yiddish, Hebrew. He didn't know Aleph Beis. So they had no curriculum for him. So he's in 770 without knowing Aleph Beis. So the Bacham are learning with him, teaching him Aleph Beis. They've got him a Gemara in Yiddish. He says, "Hey, you could have gotten me a Gemara in Portuguese. It's the same thing. I don't understand it." So, but he was very smart. He was brilliant. So they taught him concepts. So the Rebbe said, "Evet Shepim from the vent. He's going to draw inspiration from the walls just by being here. He's going to draw inspiration." And then the Rebbe told him for the first 3 months, and then the Rebbe said for the first 6 months, "Don't ask yourself what you're doing here because you won't be able to answer the question. You will not be able to answer the question." And then he says, after like 3 or 6 months, it clicked. I said, the Rebbe said, my father said to me, at that point, I said, "I'm here. I'm in. This is for me. I know it. I made the right decision. And then one time by Yechidus, the Rebbe said to him, the Rebbe offered to lend him money because he needs some spending money. Pocket money. You want to go buy something in the store, whatever. Go to the cleaners. So my father said to the Rebbe offered to lend my father money. My father said to the Rebbe, no, I don't want to take money from the Rebbe, but I can always tutor boys in English or mathematics or grammar. I'm a college grad. I can make some pocket money that way. The Rebbe said, no, you're here to learn Torah. I don't want you to busy yourself with such matters. So then my father said to the Rebbe, my parents can give me money, pocket money. When my grandmother came with my father to the dormitory, she cried. Because the dormitory wasn't exactly the Ritz-Carlton, it was, and they gave him the nice dormitory, She wanted to know why the boys needed lockers. If everyone's religious here, they don't steal from each other. So she was told to give everybody a sense of self, a sense of space, personal space, lockers. And they surround them with the English Bachar because they're more civilized, a little bit more well-managed, so the English Bachar. But my father was not a picky fellow. He blended in very nicely, but he was collegiate. He wore like a herringbone jacket. He had like brown shoes. He didn't dress the part. Like people knew that he was Yaakov Hanukkah, but he was a Chassidish Yid throughout. Anyway, that was a joke. So when it came time for my oldest siblings to start getting married, we were afraid no one was going to want to marry us. We look at the difference. So we had to blend in a little bit better. So we forced the change. My father was a nonconformist. That's the way he lived his life. But anyway, so he had a very deep connection with the Rebbe. He merited to have many private audiences with the Rebbe, and he was very connected with the Rebbe. So he told me that when we met the Rebbe for the first time, when he was in college, it was very fashionable. It's still fashionable today to some degree, but it was very fashionable then to blame your parents for all your problems. We all go through that, right? Then we grow up and realize that we have our challenges, we separate. Anyway, so he says to me, but I made a decision before he was religious. I made a decision. I'm not going to blame my parents for all my problems. I'm going to view all of life's challenges as challenges to be overcome, not as problems to endure. It's fascinating. It's a fundamental, earth-shattering achlata to make. So he says to me, when I met the Rebbe saw that in me, and the Rebbe liked it. That was the way the Rebbe looked at life. There was no problems in life. The Rebbe looked at everything as a challenge to make you stronger, as a positive element to it, a positive thrust. And my father was an incurable optimist. So he was a scientist and he would work on projects to figure out how to make solar cells more efficient. He would come home and he worked hard. So when he'd come home, we would let him have a private dinner with my mother. We were already like teenagers. So, but we wanted to hear what he was talking about at work. So we'd go to the living room with our antennas would go up, before wireless. And he would sit in the kitchen. We would try to pick up whatever we could, but we couldn't do their space. So he would celebrate, oh, I had this breakthrough at work, whatever. One day he says to my mother, bring out the champagne bottle. There's big news happening now, big news. So he comes and he says, I remember the moment to this day. I was about 18 years old at the time. I'm sitting on the couch a few rooms away. He says to my mother, today we figured out that the project we were working on, this experiment for 5 years, we figured out it's not going to work. Let's celebrate. Then he says, now I know that the other process is going to work. If this is not going to work, I know what to do to make it work. So he took out a champagne bottle. He said, L'chaim, he was celebrating the clarity of knowing what's not working, so he knows it's going to work. Wow. This is his optimism, tremendous optimism. And one time when I was he was a scientist, so he'd help us with he was very fun, very humorous. He'd help us with our science projects. So when we come home, he'd say, so what did I get on my test? Said, what did I get on my test? He's very humorous. So one time I have a friend, I grew up I went to a small yeshiva because he was out of town. There was very, very few boys in the class. So one boy that a very close friend of mine, he was a Litvisher boy, not a chassid. He said to me, out of love, he says, Chabad must have so much money. Chabad must have so much money. They're opening up Chabad houses like mushrooms, left, right, and center all the time. It must be loaded with money. How else could they do it? And I didn't know what to answer the guy. I didn't know what to say. So I came home to my father, suffered him. I said, no, what should I tell him? He's telling me, Chabad has so much money, they're opening. My father got very serious. And he banged on the table, like more as in a form of resolve, like this. He said, just the opposite. Because Chabad does not have any money, that's why they're so successful. I said, what do you mean? He says, because they have ruchnis, they have spirituality, and they're not afraid to try anything, and they just go full force, and they go with the Rebbe's keiches, that's how they can do all that they do. Clarity, that resolve. And he was a magician. My father was an amateur magician. He was good at it. He would drive to work. He would practice the sleight of hand. He would palm like quarters and half dollars in his palm, and he had all kinds of tricks. He used to perform at work also because he was the only from person in the company of about 150 people, and they'd have work parties, let's say for Thanksgiving or New Year's. So it was a difficult situation because he couldn't participate in the party. It was not kosher. But he had to sort of show his face. So he spoke to a Rav. So basically he arranged that he would be the magician at the party. He would provide entertainment. So he'd bring his whole magic kit. He'd come in the beginning, do a magic show, and that was it. That's how he lived the life. But they all respected him as Dr. Hanoka. And in fact, a lot of the younger people that worked with him, they used to confide in him with their issues. Young guys would have issues with their girlfriends and the goyim. They would have problems. He would try to encourage them to settle down and to create a family. He was a father figure for many people there. The Rebbe told him to be very careful to give his boss an honest day's work, because the Rebbe said all the goyim are going to look at you as a sign of what a Jew is. My father was an ambassador with a full beard, and also I want to tell you that a lot of scientists in the 60s and 70s, they were uncomfortable with the fact that the world was only, how old is the world? 5,700, whatever, right? They were uncomfortable with the age of the world because science was claiming the world was millions of years old, and there was apologetics. They were getting, even from scientists, were trying to kite things. The Rebbe was kipshutai, every day of creation is kipshutai, and the world is this age. So he was a staunch proponent of the Rebbe Shita in the 60s, in the 70s, which was really career suicide. He was going inside, he didn't care. That's it. So on his Matseva, when we wrote his tombstone, during the shift, we wrote, he was loyal to Hashem. He fought the fight of God with regards to the age of the world. He was a Rebbe scientist. The Rebbe said to him once that Professor Hanoka should spread Chassidus with amongst the professors. And the Rebbe said to him, I'll tell you another story. I don't know what we did to Meretz, but my father, in Simchas Torah, the year was Tafshin Tov Hey, 1965. My father needed a shidduch. He's ready for 3 years looking for shidduch. And my father told me, he says that because he was a Baal Tshuva, they were suggesting matches for him of some girls that were like, they didn't want to wear sheitlach in those years, and that some of them were modern. So they thought that this would be the right kind of guy to match him up with. My father was not interested. He wanted the real thing. He was totally from. And by the Fabrengen in public, the Rebbe told my father to say l'chaim on 3 cups of wine, full cups of wine, and the Rebbe said to him, should find a shidduch toiv b'korif, find a good shidduch, close, and he got engaged that year. The base time was like 9 months later to my mother, and by the l'chaim was in front of the Rebbe's room. The Rebbe came out and wished him mazel tov, and then my father. Her mother moved in with the family. She moved in. She was a widow. She lived with them for years. So my father grew up with his grandmother in the house. She was an old Sephardic woman, had tremendous amounts of chacham, believed in tzaddikim. So she told my father, after my father came to the Rebbe, my grandparents, my father's father and my father's mother were worried. They didn't know what happened to their son. Who knows? They thought maybe he got mixed into a cult. They didn't know what Lubavitch was in the days. The Rebbe came to my father's grandmother in a dream and said to her, don't worry about your grandson. You're going to have lots of nachas from him. So she came to my father came home. She said to my father, a chacham Chacham is how the Svardim speak, but a tzaddik. A Chacham came to me in a dream and said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to have lots of nafas." My father showed her a picture of the Rebbe. She said, "That's the Chacham who came to me." Imagine the Rebbe was looking after the neshama. Every neshama, everybody. And then later on, I have to tell you, my grandfather, who in the beginning was worried about what's happening to his son, but later on in life, he used to brag to all his friends. My grandfather was blessed with a very long life. He lived till 97. So I knew him well into my adult life. So he used to brag to his friends, says, every one of my grandsons and grandsons-in-law are rabbis. He says, he used to brag to them all. He's very proud. And the Rebbe's koiches. Anyway, should have a good Shabbos. And Chodesh Iyar, Ani Hashem Rifecha, enjoy the beautiful weather, the Gashmis, the Beruchni, it's the beautiful time of the year. It's Bir Hamidus. It's the only month of the year where every day of the month is a special mitzvah. Sira Sa'omer. So we verbringed a little bit. Then I will try to say some
What
more
makes
stuff.
that different from all of the classes?
What?
I said, what makes it different from all of the classes?
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
Used
Anyways,
to not.
be well. By the way, I have to tell you one more thing off the record, but my father was such a strong chassid of the Rebbe. He was so connected. He did a lot for the Rebbe. After my father passed away, we saw here in this physical world I got clear messages from him many times. One of them was that after my father passed away 11 years ago, so me and my two sisters, thank God, we each was able to have a child after him, and we each had boys. So they're named after him. Also, statistically, they have boys out there. And then my Nissan nephews who had children after us also had boys. So the next 6 children born in the family were all boys. And when my son was born, we found out my wife was pregnant the day after I finished saying college for my father. So I said to my wife, it was like 11 months later, I said to my wife, I couldn't think about it. It was catching minyanim. I couldn't think of anything else. So I said to myself, this is pretty interesting. The timing is very, So and she had a boy, and my son was born on the parsha that says, "Vayemer Lav Mashiach Vayemer Yaakov," and his bris was on Hanukkah. There's a lot of clear simonim from Shemayim. Anyway, so my father's neshama Shavin Aliyah. Come down the matzah, join us with Mashiach already. Come down and show him. He's a magician. He's probably playing tricks upstairs, but we wanted to come down. The magic show for us down here. Anyway, how big is it? All right.
Thank you.
My father was into solar energy. He was an inventor. So he was into photovoltaics and